All right, let's dive into the incredible life of Swami Vivekananda. And we're not just talking about the typical biographical stuff. We're going deeper. We're looking at his experiences in the West. And to guide us, we've got Chapter 8, Experiences in the West, from Swami Nikhilananda's complete biography of Swami Vivekananda.
Yeah, it offers such a fascinating window into this pivotal period for him. Picture this, right? It's the late 1800s, and this young monk from India arrives in London.
London, the heart of the British Empire.
Right, on a mission to share the wisdom of Vedanta. That's like the philosophical heart of Hinduism.
I mean, just imagine, right, arriving in the very nation that, at the time, ruled your homeland. That had to be incredibly complex emotionally.
Absolutely. In fact, the source mentions that Vivekananda actually admitted to not setting foot on English soil, with the friendliest of feelings. It's understandable, right? I mean, the inner turmoil.
Oh, I can only imagine. So this tension, this push and pull between admiration for Western progress, but also this resentment towards colonialism, it pops up again and again in his journey.
Oh, it totally shapes his interactions, his entire outlook. But what's amazing is how quickly he becomes like this sensation in the West. Packed classes, rave reviews in newspapers comparing him to Buddha, even attention from like British nobility. And this is all within weeks of arriving.
Wow, weeks. That's incredible. It's like, what sparked that? I mean, was it charisma? Was it the novelty of his message? Or maybe like a genuine hunger for some kind of deeper meaning in the West at a time when, industrialization was everything?
Probably all of the above, right?
Yeah.
But there's this one incident, it's mentioned in the source. It really kind of solidified how the English saw him. He actually faced down a charging bull.
A bull.
Seriously.
Yeah. To protect someone. I mean, to talk about embodying your teachings.
Courage.
Right, putting it right into action. It's funny, you see that again and again with him in the West. He doesn't just talk about it, he lives it. And that kind of genuine fearlessness, man, that must have been magnetic for people.
Oh, for sure. It wasn't just words, it was like the whole package. He wasn't just giving speeches, he was like changing lives, And one of the most striking examples of that, I think, is Margaret Noble, later known as Sister Nivedita.
Oh, yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but she was already kind of a powerhouse, right?
Yeah.
A teacher, an activist,
yeah,
moving in influential circles. What was it about Vivekananda that, led her to become, so devoted?
I mean, at first she was skeptical, of course, but there was something about his message, his presence, right, that pulled her in. And it was life-changing.
Life-changing.
Completely redirected her, She dedicated herself to women's education in India, work that ended up getting intertwined with the whole movement for Indian independence, actually.
Wow. It just shows you, right, how one person's life can be completely flipped by like a powerful idea, and then how that like ripples outward, impacting history itself.
Talk about the power of ideas, huh? And the surprising ways they can spread.
Speaking of powerful connections, what about Vivekananda's meeting with Max Muller?
Max Muller.
Yeah, the renowned scholar in Eastern religions at Oxford. I mean, the guy already knew about Sri Ramakrishna, Vivekananda's guru, had even written about him, right?
Yeah.
So what happened when those two minds met?
Oh, it was like a meeting of equals, huge respect on both sides, a shared passion for Indian thought. It was a real moment, like East and West, these two massive bodies of knowledge, two ways of seeing the world finally starting to connect.
Yeah. And Vivekananda really seemed to want to nurture that connection. Remember his vision of a temple universal, a place where people of all faiths could worship side by side.
Now that was revolutionary for his time. I mean, he was advocating for interfaith dialogue, understanding, long before it became, more mainstream.
Yeah, he had this, global mindset, even back then.
Yeah.
And his vision, it went way beyond just, sharing Vedanta.
Yeah.
He wanted to bring practical knowledge from the West back to India. Science, technology, economics, the whole deal.
Oh yeah, he had plans. Starting centers in Madras and Calcutta, publishing magazines, even establishing a monastery in the Himalayas.
Seriously?
Yeah.
He was thinking that big.
Yeah. It shows you, right? He wasn't just a mystic, he was a pragmatist. He understood real progress. It takes more than just, inner stuff.
Outer stuff too, right? So you gotta uplift people on every level.
Exactly. And I mean, he was like this whirlwind, just this energy, constantly strategizing for the future. But the source also gives us this glimpse into another side, all this outward success, but he was wrestling with a lot internally.
Oh, really?
He starts talking about being exhausted, this desire to withdraw from the world.
Withdraw?
He even calls it hell in some of his letters.
Hell, that's a far cry from the confident public figure everyone's seeing. What do you think was going on there?
Well, it's kind of the paradox of the spiritual path, right? The public figure radiating wisdom, and then this inner yearning for peace, wanting to escape from the very world he's trying to change.
Right. I mean, it's a good reminder, even the most influential people, they have their own battles going on.
Yeah.
And it does tie back into that core idea of Vedanta, that worldly happiness is an illusion. It's all about seeking true liberation.
Exactly right. This constant tension between the pull of the world and wanting something more, something beyond it.
And as he continues, traveling through the West, he wasn't just lecturing, he was watching, absorbing everything. And he actually made some pretty insightful observations about America.
Oh, yeah.
What did he make of it all?
Well, he was fascinated, right? The energy, the drive, but also the materialism. He saw the potential, both good and bad. And get this, he even predicted that distinguished members of the Church of England would one day embrace Vedanta.
Whoa, he saw that coming.
Seems like it. He viewed America as this young nation, huge potential, but with a tendency towards, the material side of things. He felt its energy could be channeled towards, more spiritual pursuits, leading to a blending of Eastern and Western thought.
When you consider the rise of, Eastern spirituality in the West a century later, it's almost like he saw it coming. Like his work, his very presence, maybe even laid the groundwork for that.
It's possible, right? Planting those seeds that would take, decades to fully bloom.
So after all this activity, this immersion in Western culture, he decides to return to India. And the source describes this deeply emotional farewell in England, filled with this commitment to help India.
Yeah, he's not just returning as this, humble monk anymore. It's different now. He's this global figure, someone who's captured the attention of the West.
He's got this voice that can actually make a difference back home.
Yeah, it's full circle, right? He left India to share its wisdom, and now he's coming back with a whole new understanding of the world, this platform authority he didn't have before.
An incredible transformation in just 3 years abroad.
Absolutely. He went looking for support and came back with, something far more valuable, global perspective, a platform that could amplify his message tenfold.
And it wasn't just about fame or influence. It feels like the West actually, deepened his understanding of his own culture.
Right. He began to see these parallels, Eastern and Western traditions, recognizing that the search for truth, for meaning, it's universal, it's human, and it's fascinating, right? His journey outward, it led him inward to a deeper appreciation for his own heritage.
And this is where things get really interesting, right? Because the source mentions this vision he had on a ship somewhere between Naples and Port Said. He dreams of this wise old man who claims to be one of the Therapeutae.
The Therapeutae.
Yeah, this ancient spiritual group from the island of Crete.
The Therapeutae, they were known for renunciation, really emphasizing inner experience. And Crete, that's where, early Christianity took root.
Okay, so what did this wise man from the past, what did he have to say?
Well, he suggests that their teachings, the Therapeutae, they might have been woven into the fabric of Christianity. He even goes as far as to suggest maybe Jesus, the historical figure, maybe he never existed.
Whoa. That's a bold statement.
Yeah.
Did that shake Vivekananda's faith?
No, not at all. What's interesting is he never dismissed Jesus or the power of his message. For Vivekananda, it was about the spiritual reality experienced by so many people across cultures that held more weight than just historical facts.
So it wasn't about clinging to dogma or, historical accuracy. It was about recognizing a deeper truth, something beyond specific religions.
Exactly. He even encouraged his companions to offer flowers to the Virgin Mary at this mountain chapel, acknowledging her as another manifestation of the Divine Mother. He saw that common thread, right? Running through different faiths, this universal yearning to connect with something bigger.
That's beautiful. That inclusive approach to spirituality, right? He wasn't about building walls between religions. It was about finding the bridges.
And that open-heartedness, it went beyond his ideas. It was his interactions, too. He wasn't just some distant guru, He connected with people from all walks of life formed these genuine bonds, and he had a great sense of humor, too.
Oh yeah, the source mentions this hilarious story about a Christian missionary preaching to cannibals.
Oh, yeah. He loved telling jokes, anecdotes, often poking fun at, religious dogma. Remember that one about the clergyman trying to explain creation, and he gets all flustered when someone asks, well, where did the fence Adam was leaning on come from? Classic Vivekananda, highlighting how silly it is to take things too literally.
He had a way of cutting through the seriousness, right? With humor, with wit, but he could also deliver some tough love, especially to his Western disciples when it came to, matters of the heart.
Oh, remember that letter to Mary Hale about marriage and ambition? Brutally honest advice. He saw her idealism, her, somewhat high-strung nature. He basically told her, look, you're either going to dedicate your life to something bigger, or you got to bring your expectations down and find happiness in a more normal life.
Choose your path, but don't stay stuck. And it shows you, right? He cared. He wanted his disciples to actually thrive.
Yeah, for sure. He wanted them to be fulfilled, whether that meant a life of contemplation or a life, really engaged with the world. But let's not forget, at the heart of it all was the upliftment of India. Even while in the West, his thoughts were always going back home.
It's like he was never just a globe-trotting guru. He was so invested in his country's future. And the source mentions how he was sending back detailed instructions to his brother disciples in India, setting the stage for a spiritual movement that would really transform the nation.
Yeah, he envisioned this network of centers, publications, even the monastery in the Himalayas. He wanted to blend the best of, East and West, empower India, not just with spiritual wisdom, but with practical knowledge too.
It's amazing, right? He's strategizing all this while simultaneously captivating audiences in London and New York. A true visionary and, a master multitasker. But in the midst of all this success, there's still that inner turmoil.
Right, that's the human side, the part we don't always see. Physically exhausted, and even more so, spiritually weary. He longed for peace, for liberation from the very world he was trying so hard to change.
It's interesting, right, how this connects back to how he felt about England when he first arrived. All that resentment, even hatred towards the British. But by the time he leaves, his whole perspective has shifted.
Yeah, his experiences had softened him, I guess. He'd encountered real kindness, deep understanding, even among, those he called the bullying Anglo-Indians. He came to respect the English character, their steadiness, loyalty.
He even said that if you could win over an Englishman's heart, he'd be your friend forever.
Exactly. And it wasn't just personal, He saw the British Empire, for all its flaws, as this powerful tool for spreading ideas. And he wanted to use that tool to spread Vedanta, to plant the seeds of a spiritual revolution.
It's like he took the very force that oppressed his nation and turned it into something that could actually, liberate people, bring about global understanding. I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it shows you his adaptability, right? He wasn't just reacting to what was happening, he was shaping it.
So as Vivekananda sails back to India, what do you think that journey did for him? For the West? And ultimately for the world?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, he didn't come back with bags of money or a team of Western scientists, but he did bring back something far more profound.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Let's unpack that in part 2. So he returns to India, no bags of money, no team of scientists, but with something you said far more profound. What was it?
Well, he brought back this renewed sense of pride in Indian culture, a global platform, and a vision that would inspire generations. And let's not forget, he'd planted the seeds of Vedanta in the West. Those seeds would grow into full-blown spiritual movements decades later.
It's like he was, more than just a spiritual teacher, almost like a cultural ambassador. A bridge between East and West.
Absolutely. He was a pioneer, a man who you just can't put him in a box. He was a force of nature, and it makes you think, right, what can we learn from his journey today? I mean, how can we navigate those tensions between East and West, tradition and progress, in a way that honors both our heritage and our potential, to grow?
It's funny you mentioned that tension between tradition and progress, because Vivekananda, he kind of embodied that, didn't he? Rooted in tradition, but so open to learning from the West.
Exactly. He wasn't afraid to challenge traditional thinking even within his own culture. He was a reformer, pushing for social change, especially when it came to women's rights education.
Right. And he also saw the value in Western advancements, science, technology, that kind of thing. But he wanted to bring those back to India, not to replace traditional wisdom, but to work with it, create this more holistic approach to progress?
He believed that real progress, it required both inner transformation and outward action. It wasn't enough to just, think about big ideas. You had to put them into practice to build a better world.
That's a powerful message for us today, especially in a world that, I don't know, feels so divided sometimes. It's like Vivekananda reminds us, we don't have to choose, east or west, tradition or progress. We can find a way to integrate these seemingly opposing forces.
That's it. He was constantly striving for synthesis, for a holistic vision that embraced both the spiritual and the material, the individual and the collective.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into Swami Vivekananda's Western journey, what's the one thing you'd want our listeners to take away from all this?
I think the most important thing is this. Vivekananda's journey reminds us that true progress, personal or societal, it takes both, inner transformation, A&D, outward action. It's about cultivating wisdom, A&D, putting that wisdom to work in the world. It's about bridging divides, embracing the richness of our interconnected world.
Beautifully said. And who knows, maybe someone listening to this right now, they'll be inspired to start their own journey of transformation, their own quest to blend the best of East and West, the spiritual and the material, to create a world that's, well, a little more just, a little more harmonious.
Wouldn't that be a fitting tribute to Vivekananda's legacy?
It really is amazing the impact one person can have, right? Especially someone who lived, over 100 years ago. And his ideas, they still feel so relevant today.
I guess that's what makes a visionary, right? Their message, it kind of transcends time, place, all that.
And it's not just the big ideas either. It's how he holds these seemingly opposite ideas in his mind all at the same time. He's so passionate about his own culture, yet totally open to what the West has to offer. He champions spiritual liberation, but he's also like this pragmatist wanting to see real progress in the world.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? That's part of his, his genius, I guess. He gets paradox. He understands that life's not about picking a side, but about finding that way to integrate, to bring together these forces that seem so opposite.
Like he's always striving for synthesis, right? That holistic vision that embraces the spiritual and the material, the individual and the collective.
Absolutely. And that's such a powerful message, I think, for all of us today, especially when the world can feel so fractured.
So as we wrap up our deep dive here, what's the one thing you hope our listeners really walk away with?
It all comes back to this, I think. Vivekananda's journey shows us that true progress, whether it's personal or, for society, it requires both. Inner transformation, A&D, outward action. It's about cultivating wisdom, A&D, putting that wisdom to work, making things happen. It's about, building bridges, not walls, embracing how interconnected we all really are.
Beautifully said. And who knows, right? Maybe someone out there listening to this right now, maybe they'll be inspired to start their own journey, their own way of blending East and West, spiritual and material, to create a world, well, a little bit better, but a little more harmonious.
That would be a fitting tribute to his legacy, wouldn't it?
It really would. It's a legacy that continues to inspire us, to challenge us, even today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the life and journey of Swami Vivekananda.
I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.